All right, welcome to Hoops Tonight here at The Volume. Happy Thursday, everybody, and Happy New Year. I hope all of you guys had a great celebration. Got a jam-packed show for you today. The Cleveland Cavaliers, off the top, are 3-0 so far in the West Coast road trip. They're riding an 8-game winning streak where they've won every single game by double figures. Really impressive basketball from them. We're going to do a deep dive into them off the top. I've been really keyed in on the Cavs over the last couple of weeks as their schedule has gotten tougher, and I got a lot of stuff that I want to get into on that front. I'm also finally, I told you guys I wanted to watch more games first. I'm finally ready to officially place the Cleveland Cavaliers in my contender rankings. We're going to do that at the tail end of that segment. After that, I want to talk about the Milwaukee Bucks, who had a big impressive comeback win on Tuesday against the Indiana Pacers. I want to talk a little bit about Giannis and some stuff with the guard rotation. After that, Golden State Warriors fans are depressed right now, and I want to help offer some perspective as someone who's been equally depressed about my team at an earlier point in the season, and talk about why I still believe that team is worth investing in. And then the Los Angeles Lakers, at the tail end of the show, I just want to talk briefly about their showdown with the Cleveland Cavaliers and some of my takeaways. You guys know the drill. Before we get started, subscribe to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel so you don't miss any more of our videos. Follow me on Twitter at _JasonLT so you guys don't miss show announcements. Don't forget about our podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts under Hoops Tonight. It's also helpful if you leave a rating and a review on that front. We also have brand new social media feeds on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, where we're releasing content throughout the year under the Hoops Tonight banner. Make sure you guys follow us there. And last but not least, keep dropping mailbag questions in the YouTube comments. Schedule's going to be a little weird over the course of this weekend because I'm going on my first ski trip of the year, Sunday through Tuesday. So I'm probably going to work on Saturday and maybe even Sunday morning as well, but then we won't be working on Monday and Tuesday. So the mailbag might not be on Friday this week. It might be on like Saturday or Sunday. I'll let you guys know. But make sure you guys keep dropping mailbag questions in those YouTube comments. All right, let's talk some basketball. So as I said, I've been really keyed in on the Cavs over the course of the last 2 weeks as their schedule has gotten tougher. It's just tough. They had been playing literally the 30th ranked schedule in the league. Just part of that's the Eastern Conference. Part of that's just the way things kind of broke. They were on some tough travel schedule at times, but like in terms of the quality opponents they were playing a lot of lesser teams out in the East. And they've played a bunch of really good teams as of late. I shouldn't say they haven't played the great teams, like the top tier teams like Boston and Oklahoma City, but they've played a bunch of really good teams in the last couple of weeks. They played the Bucks, they played the Sixers, albeit down stars, but they played the Nuggets, they played the Lakers, they played the Warriors, and they've just been ripping through all of them. They're 3-0 in the West Coast road trip so far. They've won every game of this 8-game winning streak by double figures. In this 8-game span, they have a 124 offensive rating, which is best in the league, 107 defensive rating in that span, which is 5th best in the league. I want to zoom in on Darius Garland to start because he's just become one of my favorite players to watch in the league this year. He has this confidence about him now that wasn't there in years past as it pertains to getting to his spots. And remember, getting to your spots is very much like a combination of a bunch of factors, right? Like it's a combination of like your athletic traits, like are you big and strong? Are you mobile? Like a combination of those sorts of traits, right? Darius Garland in particular is incredibly quick-footed. He can start, stop, and change direction incredibly quickly, right? And so that allows him to get to his spots. The second piece of it is like ball handling, the ability to control the basketball while you're getting to those spots. And then the third piece of it is footwork, right? That's the ability to actually weaponize your athleticism to get to spots, right? Great example of that is like in the Lakers game. Remember when he did that step through move where he like kind of pivoted like he was going to shoot over his left shoulder, but then he stepped back through to the left and then took that extra step to engage AD just to drop it off to Jared Allen so that he could get a dunk. Like that's a footwork piece that allowed him, even though the defender cut him off, it allowed him to get even more penetration into the lane to engage the rim protector for him to get a drop-off pass. I have really enjoyed watching him because it actually kind of reminds me of watching like a really, really good running back in tight space environments, the way he can kind of like just change direction and just weave through those situations and get where he needs to go. And that's been one of the primary driving forces of the Cavs getting defenses in rotation all the time, which is a great driving force behind the quality three-point shots that they get as well as the quality roll man touches that they get. And it's kind of funny because like there are a dozen reasons why the Cavs are so much better now than they were last year. And we're going to talk about a bunch of them today. But if I had to simplify it down, if someone said, hey, Jason, in one quick sentence, tell me why the Cleveland Cavaliers are so much better this year than they were last year, I would just say Darius Garland and Evan Mobley are both way better than they've ever been. That is a influx of talent that has turned this into like a 2 rock solid player team because Jared Allen's rock solid, as like a role player center, although he's He kicked AD's ass again. He keeps outplaying some of the better centers in the league. So there's that we have to contend with. Maybe Jared Allen needs to be ranked a lot higher among centers, right? But Jared Allen was rock solid. Donovan Mitchell was rock solid, but it's just kind of like Mobley and Garland. It just kind of depended on the night with those guys, right? Both of them have become way more reliable and their ceilings are higher. That is the simplest way that I can describe the improvement in this team. I want to start with Darius. So Darius is at 63% true shooting this year. That's 4% higher than he's ever been in his career. In this 8-game stretch, 21 points and 8 assists per game with 1.8 steals per game, 51% from the field, 44% from three. That's a 65% true shooting percentage. His efficiency is off the chart. And again, what stands out to me on film, and this is the part that I enjoy watching so much, is his ability to get to his spots. I'm watching him against good perimeter defenders a lot of the times. Like you're seeing athletes in front of Darius Garland, and he's just confidently, almost like with a pep in his step, dribbling past these guys and getting wherever he wants to on the floor. Once you have the ability to get wherever you want to on the floor, it becomes about two things: the ability to make shots and the ability to make the passing reads. And he's always been a great passer, but his shot making has been the piece that's been inconsistent with him in the past. And his shot making is on another level this year. Listen to some of these numbers. It's crazy. Like I said, 4% higher in true shooting percentage than any season in his career. 46% on catch and shoot jump shots. Field goal percentage, 46%. He's making almost half of them. 42% off the dribble. Weighted for threes, he's getting 1.10 points per shot in off the dribble situations. Out of the 32 players in the league to attempt at least 150 pull-up jump shots, Darius Garland ranks 5th out of those 32 guys. He's become a deadly pull-up jump shooter. This is the crazy one. He's shooting 64% on floaters. That's Jokic territory. He's 5th in the league in total floaters made. By the way, for those of you who are curious, Jalen Brunson's number 1, total floaters made. LaMelo Ball's number 2. Interesting one here, Jaren Jackson at 3, and then De'Aaron Fox at 4 before we get to Garland at 5. But 64% on floaters is ridiculous. He's a little lower at the rim. He's like 54% at the rim, but that's somewhat to be expected with the small guard. But the shot making is vital to opening up the passing reads, right? Like in the past, Darius Garland used to be the kind of guy you could run a deeper drop coverage against because one, he was a capable pull-up shooter and a capable floater maker, but he was a little more inconsistent, and the aggression wasn't always there. He wasn't always willing to take those shots. That's been a big part with Kenny Atkinson, is getting him to be more willing to take that pull-up three when it's there, even if it's a little bit earlier in the possession, right? But like the aggression and the shot making is there. What that has done is force teams to come up to the level. And like, you want to know why Jared Allen is always wide open on the pocket? You want to know why his roll man efficiency is up? You want to know why he's 4th in the entire league in roll man field goals made? A big part of that is Darius Garland is now bringing aggressive pick and roll coverages out to the perimeter because of his shot making. He had Anthony Davis out at the perimeter that entire game. Every time he hit Jared Allen in the pocket, he's rolling downhill, and it's like Max Christie on the back line, or LeBron at times, who doesn't make those rotations all the time during the regular season, and he's just bigger and he's just finishing over those guys. But the only way you're pulling Anthony Davis out to the perimeter there is if you are that scoring threat. Darius Garland has been the second best pick and roll ball handler in the entire league this year with a minimum of 400 reps. Number 1 is Tyrese Haliburton. Number 2 is Darius Garland. He's become one of my favorite players to watch in the league. It's a joy to watch him dribble around the floor and get wherever he wants. He's picking teams apart right now while scoring on them too. Can't say enough about Darius Garland. With Evan Mobley, it comes down to two things. It's a change in the way he's been used on offense. We talked about this a lot in the earlier part of the season, right? Like his roll man touches are down, which is good because he's not very good at the roll man touches. And then his ball handling touches are up, which is good because he's a good playmaker and he's at his best when he's trying to get his momentum going towards the rim with the ball in his hands off the dribble. He's run 88 ISOs and pick and rolls this year, including passes for 89 points. That's over a point per possession. So he's generating offense there. And then the big one is his spot up shooting. He's shooting 50% on threes during this win streak, this 8-game win streak. On 3.4 attempts per game, that's pretty solid volume. And he's up to 43% on the season. Teams are leaving him open, and he's just making them. And he's making them at a great rate. And so as a result, you're getting real offensive firepower out of Evan Mobley. 19 points per game. That's functional both on the ball and off the ball, with 4 assists per game during this 8-game streak. That's a real uptick. And then most importantly, both Evan Mobley and Darius Garland have addressed their biggest weaknesses. which are weaknesses that got them beat in the past. Like with Mobley, it was how do we use this guy on offense, right? When he was in pick and roll, his shortcomings in making decisions on the roll became a problem. Now where he's still getting the occasional roll man touch, but now that he's doing more of his work offensively as a spot-up guy and hitting shots and on the ball, generating shots, it's made him into a useful offensive player in a way that he wasn't in years past. With Garland, it was two things. It was, can he be aggressive as a scorer and successful as a scorer in big spots, which we'll talk about in a minute, and then the defensive end of the floor. And here's the deal. Teams are attacking Darius Garland. They are. But he's fighting. And he's not as easy to target as he looks. I think he's at his best when he's trying to be disruptive. When he can be passive, it can be an issue with his size. But when he's aggressive and he's attacking the basketball, he can force turnovers and speed guys up. Those are the reps that I see with him that look best. But on offense, he's demonstrated a clear step forward. But the next step is doing it in the postseason. And this is, Cavs fans worry about this sometimes. This is what a lot of people around the league are thinking about, right? Like the next step is doing it in the postseason. He's averaging 14 points per game inefficiently in 17 playoff games in his career. That said, I am optimistic. I think Darius Garland is going to have a very successful playoff run this year. The main reason why is because there are clear signs that he's just improving. Like, he's way better in the postseason. He was way better last year than he was the first year, right? Like, in the Knicks series, he was so bad. Then not as good as you want him to be in the Orlando series, but better. And then he's obviously way better this year than he was last year. So there's these clear signs of improvement, which to me are like a clear sign that the guy's working his ass off behind the scenes. And that to me means you're destined for improvement. So my guess is we get another big leap forward for Garland this year in the playoffs. Does that mean he's going to be just as efficient and voluminous with the scoring as he was in the regular season? Not necessarily, but I think he's going to be better than he has been. Now, obviously, we focused in a lot on Darius Garland and Evan Mobley today, but I want to talk about some team-wide stuff. And then I want to talk about Donovan Mitchell and how he fits into all of this. First of all, this is one of the hardest playing teams that I've seen in my entire time watching the NBA. Do you know how hard it is to win 8 consecutive games by double figures? With the ebb and flow of effort in the NBA, and when teams do finally kick in with desperation late and they can get a game close, it's that fake comeback thing that all of us fans have seen with our favorite teams, right? Like, it is hard to do this. The main reason why is they have incredible running habits on both ends of the floor. When the possession ends, either way, whether they get a stop or they miss a shot on offense, all 5 guys quickly disengage from whatever they're doing and they start sprinting their lanes. This is how they generate so many transition threes. This is something I've been talking a lot about. They're shooting 44% on transition threes this year, and I think they're third in makes in terms of transition threes per game. And a big part of that is everyone's running their lanes so that when they throw those kick-ahead passes or when the ball handler attempts to pressure the rim, there are kick-out options. If you don't run the floor, there are no kick-out options, right? And like a lot of times, these are rotation situations. Drive and kick basketball is how we get wide open threes, right? Like, oh, beat this guy off the dribble, draw help, kick. Oh, he gets a closeout, but you make an extra pass, or that guy drives a closeout. There's another guy, someone's wide open finally, and they shoot the three, right? That's how you do it in the half court. In transition, it's the same concept. You throw a kick-ahead pass, that dude drops it off to the trailer, guy closes out at him, he pump fakes and he rips. There needs to be a guy in the right corner. There needs to be a guy in the corner ready for that kick out pass. And if he misses, there needs to be another, or if he gets closed out at, there needs to be another option, right? Like those options are available in transition when you run the floor. And it is just habitual for this team. Everybody runs all game. And most importantly, they do it every possession of every game. This is why most of their games end in blowouts. Teams know Cleveland likes to run. So they start games all sharp and focused, and they're playing hard, and they're getting back in transition, and they hang around. But the onslaught never stops. And eventually that team lets go of the rope, and then the Cavs blow you out because they just keep running. The Warriors game was a great example of that. The Warriors were hanging for the most part, and then in that third quarter stretch, they let go of the rope for a minute. It was like, bam, transition three, bam, transition three, bam, transition three. Oh, shit, we're down 20. The game's over, right? Like, that's what they do. The second piece I wanted to talk about is the shooting. The Cavs are shooting preposterously well. 2% better than anyone else from 3. 2% better than anyone else on wide open threes. 5% better than anyone else on clutch threes, and they're making the most off-the-dribble threes in the league. Now, I want to focus more on what the Cavs themselves can control. There's going to be a lot of discussion surrounding, will Cleveland make threes when they get to the playoffs? And that's a real factor, right? Will they make threes could play a huge role in whether or not they end up getting where they want to go. But I find that conversation kind of pointless because we don't know. It's all speculation, and there's only one way to find out, which is let's go to the playoffs and let's see what happens, right? But we're not going to be able to do that for the short term. I think it's important to discuss the way that Cleveland generates their threes. And there's two things that I want to get into there. First of all is the transition piece, right? We already broke that down. Running your lanes, kick ahead passes, pressuring the rim, playing quick driving kick sequences in the chaos of the transition situations. But it's also in the half court. This team is addicted to making the right reads, making the extra pass, and hunting the great shots on every single possession. I talked earlier about transition. They're top 5 in transition threes generated and number 1 in transition 3 percentage. But over the course of games, they generate 20.4 wide open threes per game. That's 9th in the NBA. And they generate 15.3 open threes per game. So wide open is defender at least 6 feet away. Open is defender between 4 and 6 feet away. So all threes where the defender is at least 4 feet away, they're generating 35.7 per game, which is in the top 10 in the NBA. They do that through their decision making. They do that through making the extra pass. They do that through hunting the right closeout reads. It was so funny watching that Lakers-Cavs game because you'd see Rui Hachimura drive and Evan Mobley disengage off of Dorian Finney-Smith and come to double Rui Hachimura from behind, and he just doesn't see it. And so Evan Mobley blocks him. Now the Cavs are running out the other way. Whereas every single time a Laker would offer help in a situation like that, the Cavs are making that extra pass. They're making that kick-out pass. It was stark to see the difference between the guys like Rui, Max Christie, Dalton Knecht on their driving kick reads compared to the driving kick reads that guys for Cleveland were making. It was really stark. And that's something to call out because that's part of the identity of this team. And then lastly, the defense. The Cavs aren't a perfect defense. They're currently 8th in the NBA. They have some entry points that you can attack. They still struggle on the defensive glass from time to time like they have in the past, but they compete. This actually reminds me of Boston in the sense that there's an organizational pride to where every individual competes defensively, even the lesser defenders. When they get hunted, they take it personally and they compete and they slide their feet. You see Georges Niang sliding his feet in trying to get stops. You see Sam Merrill sliding his feet. You see Darius Garland sliding his feet. Those guys do their best. And then schematically, they're really smart with their help and recover. When they see a ball handler has his back turned or he's not seeing the floor, they're digging, they're doubling, they're being aggressive, but they stay home when it comes to the easy kick out reads, which is a big part of how they force turnovers. Again, they're one of the best. They're second in the league in scoring off of opponent turnovers. All of those things are team-wide details that Cleveland is excellent with every single night, which always gives them a great chance to win the game. Again, if you look at a basketball team as a combination of like your talent, what they're capable of, and then the basketball character, the brand of basketball you're playing, even if we just remove talent from the equation, which like we talked about, Darius is awesome, Donovan's awesome, Jared Allen's awesome, Darius Garland's way better than he's ever been, Evan Mobley's way better than he's ever been. It's like a big four. So they're talented. I'm not trying to undercut that. But on the side, they're also just playing the best overall basketball. Like irrespective of talent, they're playing the best basketball that anyone's playing in the league right now. And what that's done is it's slotted Donovan Mitchell as the perfect like tip of a spear that you need him to be rather than asking him to do too much. I've loved his role on this team. His usage is the lowest it's been since his rookie year. He just gets to pick his spots. I thought the Warriors game was the perfect example of this. He's kind of just floating through the game, letting things go the way they're going to go. And then in the third quarter, the Cavs were up like 11 or something like that. And Donovan Mitchell's like, I smell blood in the water. I think these dudes are about to quit if I hit a couple of big shots here. And he gets hyper aggressive and he hits 2 or 3 pull-up threes in a row. All of a sudden you're up 20 and the game is over. Right? Like that's the type, like that's a great way to use Donovan Mitchell is as this tip of a spear who can be hyper aggressive in these shorter spurts, but you're not depending on him to be Luka Doncic for the entire game. Right? So as I look at this team in the big picture, I think I'm ready to place them in my contender rankings finally. Before the show, I had Boston number 1, Oklahoma City number 2, and Dallas number 3. I want to move them above Dallas. I think they represent a better version of Dallas in a lot of ways. Like they also have excellent rim protection in the front court. I think Mobley and Allen is just a better front court than like PJ Washington, Derek Lively, and Daniel Gafford. They have 2 great shot creators. Now, obviously, Luka and Kyrie is a better duo for sure than Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. But I do think I like Cleveland's overall offensive skill more. They have more shooting. I think Ty Jerome is a better backup guard than going with someone like Spencer Dinwiddie for who's been getting a lot of those reps for Dallas as of late. In general, with LeVert too, like I just think Cleveland's overall ball handling is better. I think Luka is also a bigger weak point in a defense than Garland. The main reason why is, one, Garland competes more on the defensive end, and two, Garland is fast enough for some schematic flexibility. You can't hedge and recover with Luka because he's too slow. You can hedge and recover with Darius and try to avoid him getting into switches because he's fast enough and capable of closing out and existing in that rotation type of situation where you're sprinting around. And then lastly, the basketball character piece. I think Cleveland is a sharper basketball team. That's no offense to Dallas. They're the sharpest basketball team in the league. When it comes to details and execution, no one's doing it better than Cleveland right now. So I want to move them above Dallas. And then I want to move them above OKC. And the main reason why there is their shooting. I think Cleveland's offense is more resilient. As a matter of fact, between all the units, Cleveland's offense, Cleveland's defense, Oklahoma City's offense, Oklahoma City's defense, I think Oklahoma City's offense is easily the least trustworthy of any of those groups. We've seen just too many times how Oklahoma City's offense can literally bog down into nothing. Shea, I think, is a better player than Donovan Mitchell, but I think the overall shot creation is also better for Cleveland. Like, take Shea and Donovan out. Who do you trust? Darius Garland, Ty Jerome, and Karis LeVert, or Jalen Williams, who's really young, and Chet Holmgren, who's really young, right? Like, that's why I lean. Now, Oklahoma City can end up making a trade and making this more complicated, but I think I trust Cleveland's shot creators more too. Now, I'm not ready to move them ahead of Boston because I think Boston still has more versatility on both ends of the floor. They have more defensive looks they can go to, in more ways they can attack you on offense by virtue of them having 5 dudes who make $30 million a year. That's just kind of their talent advantage, right? I also think Boston schematically has the ability to turn Jared Allen, into more of a dunker spot guy than a roll man. This is the Jayson Tatum luxury, right? He can guard and make that action switchable, which could force Cleveland into using Evan Mobley as a roll man more, which is something that we know that he can struggle with at times. And so I actually think that Boston still has some significant advantages there. Now, I will say this, and this is a message to the Boston Celtics. The Cleveland Cavaliers are coming for you. They're addicted to winning. And at this specific point in time, they're playing better basketball than the Celtics. That's not really up for debate if you just look at the results. I'm not saying they're a better team, but right now they're playing better basketball. And while Cleveland has been attacking this season from start to finish, the Celtics have been relaxing and playing some of the worst basketball that they've played in this era. Now, here's the deal. You are better than Cleveland. The Celtics are better than Cleveland. You have more talent. You have more experience. But Cleveland right now is sharper than you. The question will be, is your talent advantage bigger than the deficit you have in how sharp you are compared to Cleveland? If the Cleveland Cavaliers are sharper to a greater extent than you are more talented, they will beat you. Right now, I lean Boston. But Cleveland absolutely can win that series. And the challenge, and this is the challenge, that, like, Boston has to take this seriously, because if they don't, they need to have the appropriate amount of fear, is my point. You have to have a goal now, between now and April, of becoming sharper to minimize that gap, so that your talent gap can carry you over the top in that sort of matchup. Again, it's just a challenge. The Boston Celtics deserve to be favored, but they need to have the appropriate fear of this matchup. But shout out to the Cleveland Cavaliers. At this point, second place in my contenders list. It's the most wonderful time of the year for getting in on all of the hoops, football, and hockey action at DraftKings Sportsbook. In the season of giving, we're being gifted college football and basketball, pro football and basketball, and pro hockey too. Almost 24/7. So many games every day, so many opportunities to place your first bet. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and place your bet. Current Super Bowl winners on DraftKings right now, the Detroit Lions at plus 260 and the Kansas City Chiefs at plus 425. And here's a gift for all new customers. Bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code HOOPS. That's HOOPS. That's code HOOPS for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you bet just $5. Happy holidays from DraftKings. The crown is yours. All right, let's go on. I want to talk briefly about that Indiana-Milwaukee game. The late game chess match was really interesting to see the way the two offenses were playing. All ball screens for Giannis, but like on ball. So he was running like ball screens with Bobby Portis and really picking on Miles Turner. It's been fun watching Giannis's playmaking continue to level up over the years. One of the things that Miles Turner was doing is he was kind of like showing up high to stop Giannis from turning the corner so that he wouldn't get ahead of steam in those ball screens, forcing him to kind of like come up with a hesitation dribble rather than just attacking. But in the process, he would then turn around and then run back to Bobby Portis or Brook Lopez. And Giannis got Brook with it once and Bobby with it once. But literally just as soon as Miles Turner would turn his head, Giannis would then throw the pass just right over his head, right to the roll man and get a layup. And I'm like, that's such a cool little like a development in Giannis's playmaking where it's not even just about reading where the defender is, but whether or not the defender's paying attention. That's a huge difference. Like if a defender is not paying attention, that's the best time to throw that pass because you have that split second before they even realize what's happening and can try to make a rotation or try to get an arm up or something along those lines. But there's a lot of that. It was also a lot of inverted ball screens, a lot of like AJ Green screening for Giannis and then slipping out of it. Damian Lillard screening for Giannis and slipping out of it. And Giannis was doing a ton of damage there. But then on the other end of the floor, the Pacers were running the exact same thing every time. They were running a pick and pop with Turner and Haliburton. And as I've told you guys, the pick and pop is always open against the drop coverage. It's just quite literally always open. So Milwaukee had no choice but to rotate from the weak side. Excuse me. So basically, like the Pacers were just running the pick and pop, pitching it back to Turner. Milwaukee was rotating. Then they'd swing it to the wing to Andrew Nembhard, whoever it was that was over there, and then they would just play drive and kick out of it. And so they were consistently having those advantage situations. So it kind of turned into this interesting contest of like Giannis surgical in the half court versus like how well do the Bucks rotate when they're dealing with all these guys driving and kicking on them. And you know, I have to say, like, I thought the Bucks did a really good job in their defensive rotations the entire second half. Even in their zone look, when they were getting pulled into all these different directions, guys are just sprinting and making those efforts. Even guys that were not making those efforts earlier in the season, like Damian Lillard and Gary Trent Jr., they were making those efforts. And then kind of came down to this like crazy sequence where Gary Trent ends up saving the day with a couple of rescue possessions. He hits like off of this crazy sequence, he hits a catch and shoot three on the left wing, and then he hits like a smothered one dribble like push shot out of the right corner that he knocked down that ended up being kind of the dagger in this one. But then Giannis, the other thing that was big in the fourth quarter was Giannis's off the dribble shot making. He hit like a turnaround jump shot over his right shoulder during the stretch of the game where he was just absolutely frying Jarris Walker. And then he hit a one leg fadeaway over Jarris Walker. He hit to ice the game. He hit like this nasty step back jump shot out by like the left elbow extended that put him up by 7 in the final minute. The biggest thing that stood out to me there was his confidence. Like he's talking shit. He's hunting those shots. And it didn't even feel like settling. It felt like the right balance to what he was doing off the dribble in those situations. Like he was attacking in those ball screens and getting downhill nonstop, but it was such a good balance between not over penetrating when the coverage dictated it and making the right passing read, like those passing reads in pick and roll, the ending late clock situations with off the dribble shot making when he needed to, getting downhill to the rim and being that wrecking ball that we all know that he can be. It was such a magnificent offensive second half from Giannis as he pulled them back. He just refused to let his team lose that game. And then again, one of the big things that's been standing out to me all season is the Bucks having kind of like an interesting guard rotation now in a way that was a huge problem all of last year and looked like a problem to start this year. And they have so many options, right? Like AJ Green's the best shooter. And his shooting was huge in the second half of this game. He hit like this crazy 3 off of an offensive rebound off the left wing. That was like a 28-footer, hit a big right corner 3 in another chaos situation late. AJ's your shooter. Andre's your best athlete and your best defender. So like if you just need a wrecking ball at the spot, Andre's the way to go. Gary Trent Jr. is probably the best overall offensive player in terms of ball handling and shot making. He ended up getting the nod late in this game, right? And it was the right call. Doc has all season long has had a great feel for like, am I going with Gary Trent or am I going with AJ Green or am I going with Andre Jackson? Am I going with Bobby Portis or am I going with Brook Lopez, right? Like he's had a great feel for that all year. Even Ryan Rollins seems to be kind of an interesting future option for the Bucks at that 2-guard spot. He's a good perimeter athlete that can shoot the ball. He's shooting really well in catch and shoot situations this year. I've seen him make some pretty impressive athletic plays. He had this play where he was against the Bulls where he was chasing Kobe White over the top of the screen and blocked him on a rear view contest. He had this kind of a garbage time play against the Wizards where he got Alex Sarr in ISO and just hit him with the between the legs crossover, toasted him off the dribble, and just dunked all over him with his left hand. Like, he's an interesting option for the future. They just have a lot more options in those spots than it appeared to be at the beginning of the season, and certainly a hell of a lot more than last year. You anchor that with how these guys have been playing. Like, since the in-season tournament ended, they're 3-3. All three of their losses, Giannis, Dame, or both, were out for those games. They're fourth in defensive rating over that 6-game span, a 106 defensive rating, which means even when their talent has been out, they've been competing. And again, I talked about their defensive rotations against Indiana. They're committed. That's the most exciting development. Like, the Bucks, to me, look like a team that is now fully committed to the work. They are bought into the daily process of being the best basketball team that they can be. And so I really want to shout out Doc Rivers, Damian Lillard, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. All three of them have just been so locked in and doing some of their best work. And again, like, I talk about this all the time, but this is a non-negotiable part of the championship process, especially for teams that don't have overwhelming talent. And Milwaukee's a lot more talented than I thought they were to start the year, but they are not overwhelmingly talented. Like, Boston has been relaxing a lot this year, but they have a huge talent advantage. And even with Boston, I feel like they're playing a dangerous game with respect to Cleveland. Like, they if they're not sharp enough, Cleveland can beat them. Like sharpness is the difference in a lot of cases. The team that runs and rotates and executes and does the right thing every single possession puts themselves in a position where their talent can push them over the top, especially when you have guys like Giannis and Dame. I've just been really impressed by them. And again, like, it could not have looked worse than it did in that 2-8 start, but this team looks completely engaged and completely bought into that process. All right, a couple things I wanted to get into before we get out of here. The Warriors. I've sensed a lot of negativity from Warriors fans. I did a radio hit in the San Francisco area on Tuesday where there was quite a bit of negativity as well. Like, I understand the sentiment. Like, this is a remarkably long slump. You were 12-3 at one point in time, and now you're 500. Like, I get it. But I do really think that mostly this is a slump. Like, nobody is playing well for the Warriors right now. The team, as a team against Cleveland, was 0 for 14 on wide open threes, meaning the defender was at least 6 feet away. They were 0 for 14. Steph Curry and Buddy Hield, your two best shooters, were 0 for 7 on wide open threes. Even if you think Steph is losing a step, even if you think he's not as capable of getting separation as he used to, he's going to shoot better than 0 for 4 on wide open threes like he did against Cleveland. Buddy Hield will play better. Andrew Wiggins will play better. Gary Payton II will get healthy. Role players will make more shots. A lot of this is just the reality of the nature of the regular season in the Western Conference. Denver just had a stretch where they lost 3 out of 5 and things were looking bleak. Now they've won 3 in a row. They have the 7th best record in the league. Earlier this season, the Nuggets lost 7 out of 11. Here's where they're at now. So there have been 2 separate points already this season where I've seen Nuggets fans that I follow and talk to are like, this shit looks bleak. Now it looks good again. The Lakers, you remember, I had a complete meltdown 3 weeks ago about the Lakers, and they've currently won 5 out of 7 and things have stabilized for them. This is the nature of the Western Conference. You're always 2 good weeks from being the 5 seed and 2 bad weeks from being the 11 seed. That is how this goes. You're in one of the down stretches right now, an exceptionally down stretch. I get it. But that's all this is. It's a down stretch. In my opinion. The Golden State Warriors right now are 3 games back from the 7th best record in the league. You're 2 good weeks from the 7th best record in the league. But Jason, we can't beat the top teams in the league. So why should we try to improve this roster? Well, first of all, that's a loser mentality. If the case is we can't beat Boston, Cleveland, or Oklahoma City, then or those 3 teams are obviously better than us, then 27 teams in the league should just pack it up and quit. That's foolishness. You go for it because anything can happen. A star gets hurt. A team gets upset. What if a lesser team gets out of the East, like a team that's not Boston or Cleveland, gets out of the Eastern Conference, and then suddenly it's like, if we beat Oklahoma City, we have a chance to win the title. You guys have all seen how Oklahoma City's offense can crumble. Milwaukee is a team that, if you ask Golden State fans, like, how much better is Milwaukee than you? Most of you guys aren't going to think they're that much better. They've had big down stretches this year. Milwaukee handled Oklahoma City because they're veteran, they're older, they're more experienced, and they were able to defend the way they needed to. Do you think Golden State's older and experienced and capable of defending the way they needed to? I think everybody in the Western Conference is beatable. Oklahoma City's offense can fall apart. We talked about that. So can Memphis's, because their spot-up shooting, their ability to convert spot-up possessions is really poor in this league. Houston's offense sucks. Denver is the weakest they've been since 2021. Dallas has injury issues. I like Dallas, but they have injury issues. The Clippers are depending on James Harden and Kawhi Leonard. The Lakers are depending on 40-year-old LeBron and still don't have a starting two guard. Minnesota, their entire 3-4-5 just can't shoot. So now follow this through with me to conclusion. What if you make a deal for a higher level offensive player, and that comes in and helps grease the wheels for you offensively? Now, for the record, before you say, Jason, why are you trying to trade Jonathan Kuminga? This is an important clarification because I've seen this on Twitter and on YouTube comments. I am not advocating for the Warriors to trade Jonathan Kuminga. I am advocating for the Warriors to make a trade. Like, Jonathan Kuminga, as good as he is young, he's mistake prone, he's inconsistent. That doesn't mean you just get rid of him. If you can make a deal, if you can go get a good offensive player and not include Jonathan Kuminga, by all means do it. I'm just saying, if that's the sticking point, you got to include him. The numbers are pretty clear. As good as Jonathan Kuminga is, he doesn't really impact winning that much at this point in his career. He can't consistently knock down spot-up shots, and he's a bad off-ball defender. Those are two things that will be crippling in a postseason series. If you're getting lost off the ball and you're not following the game plan defensively, and you can't knock down a wide-open shot when a defense is daring you to do it, those are things that are going to be a problem in a postseason matchup. As good as I'm a big believer in Jonathan Kuminga in the big picture. I don't even care that he's mistake prone. He's a young forward. He's a young athletic forward who is raw. I would love for him to have an opportunity to go to some team, or even with the Warriors, to have lots of usage, lots of shots, to make a lot of mistakes, and to learn to play on the fly and not have that kind of pressure. That's not the situation. You're on a roster with Steph Curry and Draymond Green. He's not going to get that leash here. So my thing is, if push comes to shove and a team goes, yeah, you can have this player, but you got to give us Jonathan Kuminga, I would give him up. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying you give him up just because. I'm not saying you trade him just because you want to get him off the roster. If you can have his upside and play him on the games he's playing well and sit him in the games he's not, that's the ideal outcome. But I'm just saying, if it push comes to shove and the team goes, we want Jonathan, you got to include Jonathan. But follow me through with this to conclusion. If you make a deal for a higher level offensive player, that guy comes in and helps grease the wheels. What if Steph starts playing better? Which I believe he will. What if that reinvigorates your defense and you get to the level you were at earlier in the season? What if that creates smaller roles for everyone else that they can suddenly thrive in? I know it's hard to imagine right now, but remember, this isn't the only Warriors team we've seen this year. This same group went into Boston and beat the Celtics. This same group went into Oklahoma City and beat the Thunder. They are capable. You're seeing the bottom version of them right now. Now, again, Jason, it's insane for you to think that they're a championship contender. I don't think they're on the same level as Cleveland, Boston, or Oklahoma City. But I think if they make a trade, they can get into that second tier. And if you're in that second tier, anything can happen. And as a competitor who has Steph Curry on their team, you owe it to him to give him that shot. Especially when you're destined to tank no matter what. I've said this before, but the Warriors offense with Kuminga off the floor and Steph on is dog shit. It's terrible. You're not going to compete in the Western Conference post-Steph. Not unless you trade Steph and get a boatload of good players back. And that's not going to happen. You're not trading Steph. So I do think that this team is better than they look right now. I do think with the right trade, they could enter into that second tier of contention. I do think with the second tier of contention, anything can happen and you might find yourself in that spot. I do think Steph is better. I will be better. And I think that Steph is still a guy that can be difficult to contend with in a playoff setting. And yes, if it came down to trading Kuminga, I would do it. That doesn't mean I would do it just because. Lastly, before I get out of here, just had a couple thoughts on the Lakers. Two thoughts from the Cavs game. One of my biggest fears going into that game is the Lakers are not used to running that much. And what ends up happening is, like, as a competitor, you end up in that situation and you do. And by the way, I'm proud of the Lakers as a fan for the way they fought that entire game. They never let go of the rope. I saw this stat earlier. The Cavs I'm going to try to pull it up right here so I can give you the exact numbers. The Cavs had scored over 30 points in transition in like 5 consecutive games going into that matchup. I'm pulling it up right now. But they were running everybody out the gym. And the Lakers were the first team to kind of contain them in transition. To their credit, they had, here, I got the numbers right here. They had 36 points in transition against Philly, 32 points in transition against Utah, 36 points in transition against Denver, 30 points in transition in Golden State, only 19 against the Lakers. They battled. They did their job. But one of the problems there is the Lakers couldn't make shots. And it's because the Cavs are used to running all damn day and making shots while doing it. The Lakers are not. And when you start running like that, you lose your legs. When you lose your legs, you don't make shots. Point being, all I'm saying, I don't think the Lakers are capable of being better than the Cavs. I think the Cavs are a better team. My point is, hey, Lakers, if you play like that every day, if you play that hard, you're going to condition yourself to be able to play in that setting and to make shots and give yourself a better chance to compete. It's just something to keep in mind. That's why you practice playing championship basketball every day instead of playing it only when you feel like it. And then lastly, I thought that game was another great example of why they need that upgrade at the 2. 1, just way too comfortable. Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell getting to their spots. And then 2, how many possessions, like that late kick out 3 to Cam Reddish in the left corner? It's like, as I'm watching, I'm like, I just wish that was a better player than Cam Reddish. The biggest issue for this team is they need a starting caliber 2 that can defend at the point of attack and be a functional part of their offense. That's why I'm keyed in on a guy like Bruce Brown. I've seen some other examples. I had a buddy pitch me an idea for a trade for like Robert Williams and Anthony Simons. Anthony Simons can't really defend. It's a move towards offense, but like there's a bunch of different directions they can go there, but you need a higher level player at the 2 than what they've had access to over the course of this season. That's something that they have to address. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. As always, I sincerely appreciate you guys for supporting me and supporting the show. We'll be back tomorrow with a breakdown of a jam-packed Thursday night slate. I will see you guys then.